I'm being joined in the studio now by Vincent Yusuf. Vincent Yusuf is Daily Trust Agric Correspondent. He joins me right here in the studio. We're also expecting Dr. Celestine Ayok, Senior Consultant, and of course CEO Spring Dairies Limited, to join us via Zoom from Kaduna, and of course Baba Othman Ngelzarma, National President Miyetti Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria. MACBAN will join us via phone from Damaturu in Yobe State. But let me start with Mr. Vincent here in the studio. Mr. Vincent, you saw that report, the rising cost of cattle, affecting the cost of beef in the market. What do you attribute that to?
Well, basically, first of all, thank you very much for having me in your program today. You cannot disassociate that with the general economic situation in the country. In the last 2 years, prices of food generally has all gone up. So even livestock too, because they are all interconnected. Because if you have livestock in your house, you need to buy feed, and you know what has happened to the feed in the last 1 year. So prices have gone up. So because prices have gone up, also you don't expect to get it cheap in the market. What about the cost of moving these animals from wherever they are to the market? The prices are extremely very, very high. I can tell you that if you're moving cattle, for instance, from Maiduguri and you're going to Port Harcourt, for instance, there are several checkpoints. And for these people who are carrying this livestock, what they pay at those security checkpoints is different from every other group. In fact, in some checkpoint, I was in Port Harcourt during December, and you pay not less than 4,000 naira. It's non-negotiable. Whether it's, I don't want to call security, they are there on the run, they are all collecting money from me. So at the end of the day, who is going to pay for this? Because the man is in business, he's not going to buy these things expensive, they have to pay expensive transport down there, and then he's going to sell it cheap. It will not happen. So if you add the cost of feed, the cost of transport, and other elements put together, certainly you're going to see that even in terms of the beef that you buy in the market, the prices will go up.
Indeed, you look at it, and of course, actually speak about you can't separate the livestock industry from the larger economy, and of course, this is the impact that you are actually seeing. So, what do you think can actually be done? There's quite a whole lot that I understand that the government can do, especially with the creation of the new Ministry of Livestock. What do you think should be the immediate responsibility of that ministry?
I think right now the focus of the ministry is to strengthen abattoirs, such that people we don't necessarily have to be moving live animals from one location to another. So, because the cost of moving live animals is part of what is driving the prices. So, if we have very functional abattoir, that is also going to help. And then you need cold chain vehicles, so that this animal can be processed wherever they are, and then transport to the market, to the consumer. The way our meat, is being displayed in the market, if you go to other clans, you can't see it like that. Even in our other countries in Africa, that have gone far. You can't go to Kenya and go and see this thing displayed in the market with flies everywhere. No. So government really need to look at that. We need to look at infrastructure for value addition. If you don't strengthen the infrastructure, it's going to be a problem, because the cost of transport is still going to drive prices high. Because, if you are buying a cow from Maiduguri and you're bringing it to Abuja, you know what it means. About 30% of it is going to be transport. So government must look at those.
Okay, let me bring in, let hold your thought, Mr. Vincent there. Let me bring in Dr. Celestine Ayok, who joins me via Zoom from Kaduna. Good morning, Dr. Ayok.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you. Dr. Ayok is the Senior Consultant, CEO, Spring Dairies Limited. Dr. Ayok, there seems to be so much focus on livestock, cattle, beef, and so many. But there are a whole lot that can actually be gotten from these animals. Of course, you are in the dairy industry, the chunk of your milk do come from this industry. But it doesn't seem that we're taking advantage of that. What do you think? Where is the missing link here, Dr. Ayok?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this. I think for me, as one of the quickest where we can satisfy our protein requirement is through milk, because milk is a complete wholesome feed that the consumption pattern cuts across both the young people, not even age-wise, it cuts across everybody. Okay, so what it's important is to try to harness some of the broken link that will ensure efficiency in the milk, dairy milk requirement of this country. The requirement of this country is huge. People are talking about 1.5 billion liters per annum. That is the requirement. And we're just meeting 1/3 of that. So what it entails is there's a gap, huge gap that is being filled through importation. Okay, so now the government is coming up with a deliberate policy on how to gradually reduce that gap within some years span by encouraging backward integration. And encouraging backward integration, you need to take cognizance of those that control close to about 90% of the cattle that are contributing within that 560 to 600 million liters that is being produced. Those chunk of people contribute close to about 90 to 95% of that milk requirement. So what do we do to harness it? Because most of this milk is being channeled towards the informal dairy sector. So if we can harness that potential by coming up with a robust way of collecting and aggregating that milk and linking them to that formal sector, it will help in gradually reduce our import dependency within a short-term period.
Indeed. Dr. Ayok, still hold your thought. Let me bring in Baba Othman Ngelzarma. He's the National President, Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN. He joins me via phone from Damaturu in Yobe State. Good morning, Mr. Ngelzarma.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm sure you've been online and of course listening to my last guest there. He talked about how those who contribute over 500 million liters to the dairy industry, talking about the areas that you control, how they can actually benefit from the industry. What do you think can be done? I mean, how can we take advantage of the dairy industry as the case may be, especially for pastoralists who are the ones controlling the animals that produce the milk?
Well, we say all that we have been complaining in the past years is about the neglect. The neglect has been there. This is a subsector that has the potential of developing the economy, but it has been neglected for decades. But thank God, now with the coming of the new ministry, we have a lot of hope. Maybe things will be in place. I heard what my friend Dr. Ayok said. Agric is one of those that has done a lot to transform, to turn around this industry. We have been working with him. We know his contributions. We know his capacity. And these are the people that we need. And these are the areas that we need to, in the areas that we need to improve in. You see, it's unnecessary for the federal government to be spending up to about $2 billion from the importation of powdered milk into this country. It's unnecessary. One has to go and look at what Dr. Ayok is doing in Kachia. He has succeeded in creating an environment that has become conducive economically. The pastoralists who he thought of to this time don't look at themselves as people who can do what they are doing today with the help of Dr. Ayok. They are now doing it. They produce pasture by themselves. They provide milk to the processing factory. They hog the milk. They sell. These are the areas that we think the government must pay attention in order to turn around the entire livestock industry in the economy. What is happening in Nigeria economically it's not an isolation. The global economic chart, if you see, is no longer the way it was in years. The Ukraine and Russian war has made the economy to not perform as it was performing before. So Nigeria is not an isolation. We also have our own peculiarities as far as the economy is concerned. And the livestock subsector also is not an isolation. The livestock subsector is inclined into the economic chart of Nigeria. So once the economy is affected, everything about livestock will be affected. I have heard the first speaker talking about the cost of transportation of bringing in an animal from the north to the markets, maybe in the south. The high cost of petroleum is also affecting this industry. The high cost of dollar is affecting the animal health aspect of the industry, and even the faster production is being affected in one way or the other by the high cost of dollar, by the high cost of petroleum, withdrawal of subsidy, and so many other things. So the livestock industry is not an isolation economically. Since the country is already in a vicious economic cycle, so also the livestock subsector must also be in the vicious economic cycle. It is not expected to perform in isolation. So, and moreover, it has suffered neglect for decades. It is now that we are beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel coming in the area of the livestock industry, in the economy in the country.
All right. Let me speak to, before I come back to the studio, let me talk to Dr. Ayok again. Dr. Ayok, like my last speaker did say, we are spending so much money to import milk into Nigeria, over $2 billion annually or thereabout. But on a daily basis, we are spending roughly $1 million a day to import powdered milk. How do we advance the local dairy industry? I mean, for us to be able to, instead of taking this money out, we keep them here in the economy.
Okay, I think we've started. If you notice, some of the major multinationals have started this backward integration drive, which is gaining traction. Okay, I think there's a deliberate policy that is embedded in the. I think there's a dairy policy that was approved by the last Executive Council. I think we need to put a framework for its implementation. That policy speaks a lot and gives a roadmap on how we can now gradually reduce this importation on a sliding scale, by then building up the local capacity. As I said, that 560 million liters that we are collecting, I can assure you, if we strengthen the collection and aggregation of milk within that country, we have the potential of producing close to about 1 million liters, not by increasing any livestock or anything, just by strengthening that midstream sector of the value chain. And I think it's at the forefront of this new ministry. What do we do to fix that missing link in that midstream sector? That is the first thing we need to do, to now ensure that what is produced out there, we maximally collect it, cool it, and then channel it into the formal sector of the dairy value chain. Once we do that, okay, because for me, it's a hanging fruit for us to tap. Once we do that, we can now start looking at other parameters that will enhance productivity in terms of breed improvement, in terms of feeds, in terms of veterinary drugs. There are things we can do. When we come to the opportunities, I will tell you some of the opportunities that lies ahead that will help us reduce the cost of production if you have inbuilt manufacturing industries to service those activities. Because virtually everything that has to do with the dairy sector in terms of the midstream and the downstream is import-based. It's stainless steel, it's import-based. So if we can do something, that will go a long way to help. But as I said, and I will reiterate it, if we can strengthen our midstream sector of the value chain, we can collect close to about 1 billion liters of milk within the country, and then find a way of channeling it into the formal sector. Thank you.
Indeed, a very good one there. Let me bring in Mr. Vincent. Mr. Vincent, from what we heard from Mr. Ngelzarma, And of course, Dr. Ayok, there seems to be local capacity. The problem is how to harness it.
Yeah, you see, this, like Dr. Ngelzarma said, this sector has been, neglected for many years. Since independence, there have never been a deliberate effort to invest in the livestock. It's all about fertilizer. When government is talking about subsidy, it's talking about those who are in the crop production sector. So those in the livestock sector have been totally, neglected. So you can see
but they have
those
a new ministry
years.
now.
Yes, the ministry just came on board. It's not good. You don't expect miracle, but of course, now we are saying there is a deliberate effort for us to systematically look at this very subsector of the economy and make it contribute like it does in other African countries. Even look at East Africa. They are doing, in fact, 68% of the milk produced in Africa comes from East Africa. Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and then South Africa. They are the major player. Nigeria is just nowhere. And it is because this industry, it has been neglected for many years. Now, what we need to do is to look at what we have in our first, and then look at how we can move forward from that. How can we even benefit potentially from what we have at home? How do we help organize the industry in such a way that it can commercially even add value to the owners of these animals and then the economy? If we can't do that, then we will still be talking about this same issue. We have to look at that first. Look at what we have first, and then look at how we can move forward from it. Thank God we have people who have wealth of experience in this dairy sector. Government can utilize them. I've read the report of the Presidential Committee. They've also recommended a research institute for beef and dairy. It's time for us to also look at, if you look at Kenya, they have a dairy board. Virtually every crop that they have an advantage, they have a board for it. Well, we also need to look at that so that we'll be able to focus on the in-house capacity of what we have and look at how to harness that, and then see how it contributes even to the life of. And then when we are talking about life,
but in terms of comparative advantage, with you mentioned South Africa, the likes of Uganda as well. I'm sure. I think if you aggregate the number of livestock that we have in Nigeria, we have more than them. I think the challenges is how to pull them together, and of course, develop the sector to contribute to the economy.
Nigeria we're ranked about 5th or thereabout in terms of the number of livestock that we have. Ethiopia has about 10 million dairy cows. Kenya has about 4 million dairy cows. You could go to villages and see families have 1, 2, 3 cows, and they are also producing napier grass for those dairy cows.
All right.
We must.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Finish your thought before I bring in.
So we must also look at that. But when we're talking about the animal population, yes, of course, in the dairy, 90% of it is the local breed. And in terms of the milk yield of these local breeds, you cannot compare it with exotic breeds that some of these countries they have. But even with the local breeds that we have, experts have agreed that we can actually improve the milk yield. Like what Dr. Ayok said, if you can organize that, then we can move it from 615 liters, a ton that we are producing, to about a billion. Yeah, so then we can, from there, with more attention and investment coming into it, the market is there. The potential is there. So we can actually move forward, at least compared to what our other countries, our partners in the continent are doing.
All right. Mr. Ngelzarma, there's an issue about the number of animals we have. He talked about the exotic ones, and that the number that we have, the one we have a whole lot of local breeds that are not as fertile, so to say, as the exotic one, like my guest in the studio did say. You are in charge of this sector. You can tell us more about it. Tell us in terms of population of the animals that we have. You relate with the pastoralists. Tell us, have you been able to take census of the animals that we have, and how, what is the capacity they have for us to be able to produce as much as dairy product that we need in the country?
Well, you see, going by the 1991 livestock census, because that was the last time a livestock census was conducted in this country. Going by it, we have about 21 million cows in this country. But this is not the issue as far as I am concerned. You see, don't even go far up to the offshore countries overseas. Just check the neighboring countries that we have surrounding us. You realize that they have far less livestock population than Nigeria. But the performances of livestock in those countries is far ahead the performance of livestock in Nigeria. You realize that in those countries, livestock contribution to the overall GDP of those countries ranges from 30 to about 50% of the GDP of those countries. While in Nigeria, with the population we have more than those countries, our GDP contribution from livestock into the economy is just around 10-12%. And this goes to show you proper attention has not been given to the subsector over the decades. And it's not only about the population of the cows. Today, I believe, from my personal analysis, I believe Nigeria will have about 50 million cows. Do you know why? Because the traditional ownership of these cows is inheritance. All the owners get their cows through inheritance. And the desire is always for them to die and leave so many cows for their children to inherit and continue the same way. So if you consider this, you realize that the population of the animals grows alongside the population of the pastoralists you have in the country. If the pastoralists you have are 20 million, for example, in the last 20 years, today if you have about 50 million pastoralists now, you realize that if you have 20 million cows in those years, you must definitely have about 50 million cows today, because the population of the cows grows alongside the population of the pastoralists. They don't go to the market and buy and keep and fatten and milk and sell. They get it through inheritance, and the desire is always for them to die and leave so many cows for their offspring to also inherit. So this is part of the dynamics in Nigeria, and coupled with lack of education, they were left on their own, still practicing the primitive system of animal husbandry they inherited from their forefathers, because there was no attempt to modernize the trade for them. You and me are speaking in the studio today because we are educated. Dr. Ayok has been giving us technical analysis of how dairy is going to be, success in dairy is going to be achieved. It's because Dr. Ayot has gone to school and learned. But these guys were left on their own, practicing the system they inherited with no improvement over the years. They are still doing the only thing they know to do as the only option they have to do things. Because there was no attempt to try to educate them, to try to modernize the trade for them, to try to teach them, to try to even educate them that today we have exotic breeds that are weighed up to about 800 to 1,000 kilograms against the ones that they have that are weighed not more than 200-300 kilograms. They don't know that today we have cows that are given an output of milk of about 50 liters per cow per day, against the one that we have that are given not more than 3 to 5 liters of milk per cow per day, because we are still maintaining an outdated breed that are smaller in look, and they give output, very little output of milk and meat, because there was no attempt to transform, to modernize the trade for them. So these are the things that are responsible for the backwardness of the entire livestock development in the country. Not only the dairy sector, even the beef sector is affected. Faster when there was crisis in Benue, when at the heat of crisis in Benue some years back, pastoralists were forced to come out of Benue into Nasarawa State, and a lot of their cows died because there was no grass to give the cows to eat. Government was looking for grass to even buy and help them. There was no pasture in quantity production in the country by anybody for government to even reach out and help these animals. So you see, pasture is not there. The animal health is not there to some extent. The processing aspect of the economy is doing in the most unhygienic and primitive way. Go and check our abattoirs in the local governments across the country. You realize the way meat is being handled, even in the cities. You can't, if you know how they handle, you can't even afford to eat meat. But then here we are with an industry that is enough to replace petroleum in this country, but has been neglected. The production aspect is not given attention. The processing aspect of both milk and meat is not given due attention. The transportation aspect is not given due attention. Animal health is not given due attention. A lot of animal doctors are wasting away in the streets because they are not being harnessed into the economy to contribute what they are supposed to do, what they are supposed to do in order to develop the industry. So there are a lot of things to it. But we believe now, with the coming of the new ministry, we have a lot of hope because we now have a dedicated institution solely created for the purpose of turning around the livestock industry in the economy. So we hope with people like professionals like Dr. Ayok, who we know they are grounded, they know much about this dynamic, they know a lot of things that you don't know, they know. We believe if government can put confidence in people like Ayok, people like MD Abubakar who are in the dairy, and a lot of other professionals who are wasting away in the streets because they are not given the opportunity to practice what they know best.
All right, Mr. Ngelzarma, let me bring in Dr. Ayok. There seems to be so much praises for you there, Dr. Ayok. A lot of people know your investment in the industry, but let me ask you, as a processor, how do you connect with local dairy farmers?
It's easy. You know, one of the easiest things you can do is to build up trust within most of these dairy farmers, and then create a level of transparency in your pricing structure, okay? And let them know that, look, I'm collecting milk from you at this, and these are some of the things I need to impute to produce a liter of that milk and convert it into yogurt. There are a lot of things that goes in, and this is what I sell, okay? So you have advantage of volume, okay? Because you produce this milk in large quantity, and that's why we encourage them to produce this milk as cooperatives. When they cooperatives, they bring in volumes. When they bring in volume, they now transport it, and then people like us now collect. And as I said, trust. Trust is key, just like your TV station. Once you have that trust, I can tell you, if no matter the quantity of milk you want from these producers, they will give it to you. But I wanted to others say something again based on what Baba Ngelzarma said, who is a well-respected friend and a brother. Okay, I've been in the field for almost 35 years as a veterinary doctor, and all along it's working with the pastoralists. I can tell you one thing, okay? This milk production that we are saying, we produce 1 liter, 1 point something liters, okay? Please, let's know that we only make our animals only once. We have the capacity to make this animal twice if we provide necessary feeds, water, and health. So if we do that, automatically, that production that we are saying they produce, they will double it. They will double it automatically. You see, when we compare indices with other countries, Kenya produced this, they milk their animal twice. I have seen where these are local animals, where we subjected them to a convenient environment like some of these improved breeds, and they give you 6 liters of milk daily. Okay, so what I'm saying is there's a fruit that is not hanging, it's already on the floor. And as I said, thank God for the creation of this new ministry by the president. Okay, we have the ability, and with the new minister, who is a round peg in a round hole, a dairy farmer, a dedicated dairy farmer that knows his onions, we can start tapping some of these hanging fruits It's not even hanging, it's on the floor. What do we do? Harness that. But I said, back to my question. Once you have that trust, satisfying your production, me that I'm processing, sometimes I get overwhelmed with milk that I can't even, I reject. Okay? Because it's two ways. A producer, what drives a processor to produce more milk is the marketing angle.
Absolutely.
And now that the economy is tough, now the economy is down, that marketing angle is not pulling you to sell more. And it has a retrogressive feedback, because if you don't sell, it affects your collection from these milk producers and it discourages them. So the entire chain needs to be enhanced if we want a continuous flow of this system. But trust, it's key in milk collection. That's just for me to simplify it.
Still with you, Dr. Ayok, how do you cope with competition? I mean, you are in the market, you're a local processor, and of course, we know that we spend so much to bring in, some foreign product as well. How do you cope with competition? Are you staying? Is there anything impacting your success in the market in terms of foreign product?
I think there's generally a ban on importation of packaged foreign product. That is a plus, okay? But you know it still comes in, okay? You can only bring in imported powder, repackage it, and sell. For competition with my milk producer, look, let me tell you something. Anything you produce with fresh milk that is sourced here, virtually all the nutrients that is embedded in that fresh milk is there. So it's a no-brainer. Once you produce product from a fresh milk, it's key in the market. The taste is different. Everything you need to think of is different. And all the necessary ingredients, proteins, minerals that will aid, human health development is in that fresh milk. And that is why the market for fresh dairy product is thin. So that market is still a virgin area that needs to be tapped. And that is why what the dairy policy, where we suggested a dairy board should be formed, will speak to that aspect in trying to harness the potential of that. But don't forget again, I have an advantage. I'm a veterinary doctor, okay? So I advise them free, okay? And I create a lot of avenues. I create a lot of meetings with them. So I have advantage because they give me milk first because of that long-standing relationship. So sometimes my input cost of production is slightly lower than an outsider that is just coming to buy milk because of the long-term relationship I've developed with them. But competition is there. Competition is tough. But for fresh dairy products, there's no strong competition. The market is still wide and open. Thank you.
Indeed, a very good one from Dr. Ayok. Back in the studio, Mr. Vincent, you've listened to all the conversation. What is your take home? I mean, from this, you are the one that covered the sector. You relate with them a lot. You know some of the policies of government. Don't forget the last year we saw the FG launching. A way there so that we can actually have a very strong dairy sector. Tell us the take home from all the conversation that we have had.
I've been speaking with a lot of these experts, people like Dr. Ayok and then Ngelzarma and then many others who are in this sector for a very long time. And then most time government don't listen to them. If not because we now have a new minister who is now giving attention, is trying to bring in a lot of these people to harness the potentials they have. Government have not been listening to them. They have politicized the industry in the past such that, people who have the required wealth of knowledge, to transform that sector, have not been given an opportunity. Now they are. You can deduce from what they are saying. We've got a lot potentially within the country. Even the local breeds that we have, we could even get more from them. We are getting less. But that is because we've not been organizing them in such a way that we can benefit us as a country. But I also want to add that we must look at the feed sector, the fodder industry. Because, I spoke with a lot of them and they will tell you that the reason why some of these livestock on a move from one point A to point B, they are in search of water and feed.
Exactly.
Once you are able to organize that in such a way that these people can access quality feed.
Talking about ranching.
Yes, once they can, if it might not necessarily, if I have a place to keep cows in my house and then I know where to buy feed to feed them in my house, do I need a very big ranch? No. I mean, even with those 3 cows in my house, I can get good milk. Like Dr. Ayo said, if you can milk twice in a day, the capacity will double. Yes. So we have to look at that. What can we need to do? Government need to do? Government really needs to bring in this expert to look at a blueprint. Okay, develop a blueprint for to systematically organize the sector in such a way that both the owner and the country can benefit.
Absolutely, that's a very good one there, and I'm sure government is taking that part as well with the creation of the new Ministry of Livestock. There's quite a whole lot on their table to deal with at the moment. I must thank you, Vincent, Yusuf, Daily Trust Agric Correspondent, for your time on the show. I also want to thank my guest, Dr. Celestine Ayok, Senior Consultant, CEO, Spring Dairies Limited, speaking to us all the way from Kaduna. I must thank you for your time. And of course, Mr. Baba Othman Ngelzarma, National President, Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN, also was on phone with us on this show from Damaturu, the capital of Yobe State. Thank you, gentlemen, all for your time on the show today. And with that, it's a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akogu.